So setting resolutions on the 1st of January has never been realistic for me. But setting goals, thinking about intentions of things that I might like to learn or achieve over the coming months, that I can get on board with. In previous years, my social media feed has been flooded with the hashtag Make9, where people choose 9 specific garments that they want to make over the course of the year. But honestly, those garments are so likely to change over the year. What you say you want to make in January could be completely different to what you want to make in August. And actually, that hashtag Make9 has largely disappeared. People are sewing and consuming a lot more mindfully. And when I asked around various spaces to see what people's goals for the year ahead were, the general consensus was more along the lines of, I want to learn this skill, or I want to develop this technique. There was also, I want to sew for my own personal fabric stash. And another big one was, I want to create a wardrobe of garments that I love to wear every day. So with that in mind, I've chosen 5 goals that people have either shared with me or goals of my own, and we are creating a sort of community vision board for 2026. Selfishly, I'm going to start with my own goal, but this is a goal that quite a few people have mentioned as well, and it is to sew a pair of jeans. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you will know that I have had sew a pair of jeans on my list of things that I want to achieve for quite a few years, and frankly, it is getting a bit embarrassing. I will continue to add it to my list every year until I do it. But I'm really hoping this is the year. I have the fabric and I have chosen the pattern. So what is it, do you think, that puts us off actually tackling a pair of jeans? It could be the techniques involved. There is a lot of techniques involved in sewing jeans. You've got a fly front zip, you've got top stitching, there are a lot of pockets. For me though, it's the fitting. The techniques I feel pretty comfortable with, but it's the fitting. We are all wonderfully unique shapes and sizes. I have quite a big bottom, I'm very hippie, I've got chunky thighs, and then I've got a relatively narrow waist. So there are a few fitting issues that I need to tackle. That's not a bad thing. It's just having the brain space, I think, and the time to tackle them. Last year, I sewed the Helen's Closet Falconer pants, which are a really good place to start if you want to learn a couple of techniques, namely top stitching and fly front zip. Now, these aren't your traditional jeans. You can make them in denim, but they don't have all the components and hardware that make them a traditional pair of jeans. So from talking to a few different people, there are 3 pairs of jeans, 3 patterns that particularly stand out. Megan Nielsen actually has 2, the Dawn jeans and the Ash jeans. Both are really, really popular. Both come in a standard size range and a curve size range, and both have different views as well. So you've got things like straight leg, skinny leg, flared leg, wide leg. There's lots of scope to go for with those ones. The other pattern that stands out, which is the one I'm going for because it's the one that I already own, and that is the Cashmerette Amos jeans. Cashmerettes are well known for catering to plus size, curvier bodies. So I'm really, really keen to spend this year mastering the techniques and mastering the fit on a pair of jeans. I have some fabric, so I'm going to make what I hope will be a wearable toile, but I imagine that there are going to be some fit alterations that I'm going to want to tweak over time with each pair until I get it just right. That's okay. If it takes me 5 years, that's fine. I just need to start. Diane's goal was twofold. First of all, she wanted to learn to sew Welt Pockets this year, and she also wanted to work on a wardrobe of items that go together. And actually, I think both those goals can work really well together. I love that this goal is a specific technique that will improve your sewing skills that can then be used in various other patterns. You'll find Welt Pockets in trousers and in jackets. Most commonly, that's where you'll find Welt Pockets. So I think have a look through your patterns that you've already got and see if you've got one that will help you learn to sew Welt Pockets. I have pulled out the Tilly and the Buttons Thea trousers. Tilly and the Buttons is well known for instructions that really hold your hand. So I think this is probably a really good one to look at for learning to sew Welt Pockets. And then you've got a really good pair of everyday trousers that will go with various blouses, sweatshirts, jumpers, shirts, loads of things that you probably already have in your wardrobe. So you're kind of ticking off 2 goals in one there. And then once you've mastered the Welt Pockets on a pair of trousers, you could then transfer those skills to sew a jacket that then complements the trousers and the blouse, and you've got a whole outfit all in one, and you've really honed your skills on sewing a Welt Pocket. I think I'm going to add this one to my list as well. One lovely lady, Melinda, said, I just want to get back to sewing. Last year she lost her sewing motivation, and I think that is really common. Losing your Sewjo is actually really, really normal. But there are some things we can do to help reignite the Sewjo. There are so many reasons why you might have a lack of Sewjo. Maybe life is just super, super busy. Maybe you haven't got much time. Maybe you've had an illness. Maybe you've just been a bit overwhelmed with all the things you want to sew that you can't actually make a decision about what to actually sew. All very, very common issues. I actually have a video from a few years ago with some tips that you can do to reignite your Sewjo if you're having a bit of a sewing slump. And all those ideas still stand today. Things like tidying up your sewing space. That can be a really good one. If your space is cluttered, you're going to feel cluttered in your mind as well. So having a good sort out can be really, really good. Things like refolding your fabric stash or sewing a quick win, something that you know fits you, something that you don't have to think too hard about and you can sew it up in a day. Another suggestion is to sew something that isn't clothes. Clothes need fitting, and that can be a really big thing that stops us from wanting to sew. So sew something different. Sew a bag or a tote bag or a purse or something like that, something that doesn't need fitting, but you can still use those sewing skills. The only other thing that I would add that wasn't in that previous video is to find a community of people who love sewing just as much as you. There is nothing that can hype you up more than chatting about sewing with someone else who loves it too. Chatting about sewing with someone who doesn't get it doesn't work. You need people who understand. So if you've got some friends local to you who sew, you could start a WhatsApp group. There are loads of in-person sewing social groups you can find. Just sort of Google and see what you can find, or you could join an online sewing social as well, like the ones that I run at ThreadySetGo. They are lovely. I never come away from those sewing socials feeling drained. I always feel uplifted and really excited to get back to sewing. One lovely lady said she was really keen to learn to sew collars. I love how this vision board is becoming a real mix of types of garments, specific techniques, and broader sewing goals as well. I really love sewing shirts. I find collars a real pleasure to sew. They took a while. Of course, I had to learn how to sew them. They took a while to get right. But now I think I've just about mastered it. I've really loved doing it. It makes me feel very accomplished. This one is the Experimental Space Hayley shirt, which has a very exaggerated pointed collar. I've also sewn the Sew Over It Alex shirt, which has a flat collar. It doesn't have a collar stand. But one that I really love sewing is the Closet Core Jenna shirt. I find this one so satisfying. There's loads of gorgeous little techniques that you can really get stuck into, and I've actually sewn 3 now. If you want a little bit more inspiration on sewing the Closet Core Jenna, check out my video where I put a sewing gauge to the test to find out how many ways I could use it to make a Closet Core Jenna. So there are loads of different types of collars. You've got the traditional collar with a collar stand, you've got a flat collar without a stand, Peter Pan collars, rounded collars, big exaggerated collars with extra ruffles and bells and whistles. There's loads of different types of collars. So if sewing collars is something that you want to get really good at, look for garments that have different techniques, different elements of the collar, so that you can get a real broad spectrum under your belt. Finally, one lovely lady said, I want to go all in this year. I want to sew coats, I want to sew jackets, and I want a pair of wide leg pull-on trousers that doesn't bag around my tummy. So a quick shout out here to the So Liberated chanterelle pants that I made last year. I particularly loved the wide leg version. They fit like an absolute dream. I've made quite a few wide leg pull-on trousers and I too often find that I get some bagging around the tummy. Not with these ones. These ones honestly were the best fitting pair of trousers, wide leg pull-on style trousers that I've ever made. As for coats and jackets, we've got quite a wide spectrum that we could work with here. There is a lot of different types of coats and jackets. You could go for a denim jacket, a trench coat, a fitted coat, a quilted coat. There are loads of different types you can go for, and I recommend trawling through some of the patterns that they have on the fold line, for example, to get a real good sense of what's out there and what you might like to sew. But I'm going to share something that I'm hoping to work on. This is going to be a long-term project for me. When I was making the chanterelle pants last year, So Liberated actually were in the process of releasing a coat pattern, their Retazo quilted coat, which is absolutely beautiful. So I made a decision. As I am cutting out any project over the course of the year, this might take a lot longer. I am making sure to set aside some of those scraps and cut them into squares or rectangles, and I have built up a lovely little collection of squares of fabric that interestingly all actually kind of work together color wise. It seems I'm quite into blues and greens, so I am keeping those to one side, and over the course of the next year or 2 years, I'm going to build up that collection of squares of fabric and hopefully one day turn them into a beautiful jacket. Whether it's the Retazo jacket or a different type of garment, that remains to be seen, but that is the goal at the moment. There's something about setting goals that can really fire you up and make you think intentionally about where you want the year to go. Whether they're sewing related or other life goals, I think the key is to be mindful and realistic, which is why I don't think setting goals on the 1st of January is necessarily a good idea. We're still in rest mode. But we're now towards the end of January, about to head into February, and I think now is the perfect time to start thinking about what you want to achieve in your sewing. Saying I'm going to sew 5 things every month or 100 things this year, those are big goals, and we all know that life can get in the way. But saying things with a bit more intention, like I want to explore sewing jeans this year, or I want to really hone in on this technique, or make a wardrobe of garments that work together, those are the kind of goals that are going to give you something to work towards and help you learn a few great lessons along the way. So if you've got any goals or intentions that you want to explore, let me know and add them to this great big community vision board that we are building. Thank you so much everyone for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.